It's the most wonderful time of the year. I'm not trying to get into my singing career. I'm just excited because it is the time of the year for Demon Slayer Sundays. What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. And now is a good time to be here because, y'all, we're already back. It's time. It's Demon Slayer season, and while this season is going to be a little bit shorter than the others, and it's already usually short, I am going to eat up this next month and a half of new Demon Slayer content. And so are you, so stick with it. Now, every Monday, I'm hoping to be posting somewhat of a review. A lot of people do reviews, and I know that can get boring really quickly. What I want to talk about is a quick review, along with predictions and comparison of manga as a manga reader, because this season I know is just going to be a little bit different compared to what they normally do, which I'm really excited about. So it'll be fun to kind of look at the manga after each episode and see how they adapted it and what they added, that sort of thing. So that's what these videos are going to be about. I'm going to be splitting this into 3 parts. So first will just be an overall review with a rating of the episode. Second part, we'll talk about the differences and added and changes, whatnot, anime to manga, and then finally I will put a spoiler warning before I get to the final part because I am going to predict what the next episode is going to be like, and I will dip into some manga spoilers for that for the next episode, so I will put another manga spoiler warning for that as well. Now today is also going to be a little bit different because I'm going to start out by talking about episode counts. Since the new episode aired as of recording this yesterday, we did get the official amount of episodes, and I'm gonna talk through that a little bit. I'm gonna predict a tiny bit now and a tiny bit later. Non-spoilers now, spoilers later. Alright, let's go. So before we dive into the episode, let's talk episode count. So we are getting 8 episodes for this season. And the reason I say that it is the official count is because Aniplex and Ufotable will never actually downright say how many episodes there are going to be in a season. What they do is they announce the release date of the first Blu-ray disc, and that always comes out the Wednesday after the season finale. That was what happened last year, that's what happened with Entertainment District, and that's what's happening again this year. And as of Sunday, they announced that the Blu-ray disc 1 is coming out on July 3rd, meaning that is the Wednesday following June 30th. That will be when our season finale is. That is 8 episodes. That's how we know our episode count for the season. Now, yes, this is definitely a shorter season compared to Entertainment District and Swordsmith Village, which both, of course, got 11 episodes. And I also want to mention that because they usually do a double-length feature, both the beginning and the end, we're technically getting roughly 10 episodes, and the last 2 we technically got like 13 or 14 episodes. So that is something to keep in mind when it comes to runtime. They tend to keep the length of the season week-wise short, but it still is going to be a pretty much full-length season. But also, for those who don't know, and I'm sure you probably are aware, the Hashira training arc is a very short arc. It is actually the shortest arc in the entire story. It is about 5 chapters, give or take, shorter than Mugen Train. So to put it into perspective, Mugen Train obviously got a movie, however, it also got the episodic release right after. And with it being actually a few chapters longer than Hashira Training, we had less episodes of it. In fact, the first episode of the Mugen Train was completely anime original from start to finish. Not one moment from that episode was manga canon. So technically it was only 6 episodes following manga canon. So with that being said, I think it's very obvious we are going to get quite a bit of anime original content this season, which I'm really excited about. I know a lot of people watch Demon Slayer for the fights, and they're gonna be a little disappointed by this season because it is the Hashira training arc. So I hope you all going into this understand it is a training arc. Don't set your expectations up to, oh, we're still gonna have big fights this season. I've already seen some anime onlys doing it. That is not a good idea to do, because every time you set your expectations higher than you should, you can get let down. And that's on you, not Ufotable. So it is a training arc. I personally am very excited. We don't ever get to see our characters just hanging around, and there's still going to be intense moments, there's still going to be some action sequences, it's just not going to be up against demons, and it's not going to be to the death. So I'm looking forward to getting some extra content. I think we can really take some time to learn a little bit more about our characters, see them just living life as they wait for a really big battle that is upcoming. So I'm looking forward to all the anime original content we're going to get. I also am assuming, based off of the pacing of this first episode, which I'll talk about in a little while, that they are just going to pace their chapters slower this season. We're going to get a lot of backstory this season, and this is what they commonly do, is when there is backstory, they tend to just take the source material and slow it down. So that is kind of what this season is going to look like. A lot of anime original content I'm expecting, a lot of just slowing down, breathing with our characters, relaxing a little bit, even though they're in training, but we as an audience get to relax. We're not going to be on the edge of our seats the entire time, and just enjoy this time. This is like, honestly, some of the last moments we'll get to just laugh with our characters, smile with them, just be able to breathe and not be holding our breaths at the edge of our seat the entire time, because what is to come, as we can already assume, this is not a spoiler, is obviously a very big battle. Now, let's talk a quick little overview and review of the episode itself. Overall, I give it an 8 out of 10. It is an episode that had a lot of really good moments, a lot of really funny moments, a lot of really wholesome moments. I'm just gonna call out a few of my favorites. Of course, the first 5 or so minutes with Sanemi and Obanai was anime original content and is really, really exciting and fun. Of course, they gave us an Easter egg of the Infinity Castle, as we've only seen demons in it so far, but they did jump into it. I do think that kind of caused a slight plot hole because they didn't mention it during the Hashira meeting. I would assume there will be at some point time for them to mention that they found themselves in a weird kind of building-ish. But we'll see if Ufotable follows up on that, or are we just going to have to accept it as a small plot hole. The thing with that is I don't really care about small plot holes like that. That really isn't going to change the story moving forward. It just would be kind of silly that they never mention it until they're in it again. That didn't change the fact that I really enjoyed that opening sequence. It was so well done. I loved seeing serpent breathing and wind breathing. I loved that wind breathing is green to match his sword. When it comes to being a manga reader, you see a lot of this unfold, but you don't really know the full scope of it because it's not moving, it's in black and white on a page. When you see it on the screen where it's moving and it now has color, that can really just make it become so much more interesting. And wind breathing to me in the manga was very basic, but in the anime, it's already turning into something that I think I'm gonna really enjoy seeing more of. And this was just the very, very beginning. Whenever Ufotable animates breathing styles at the very beginning of a season or at the very beginning of introducing it, they tend to be a little bit more like pumping the brakes on it, and it'll be maybe a little bit more static. They usually really hit their stride midway through the season, so I think that we're going to see serpent and wind breathing in even greater capacity later on in this show, and it makes me very, very excited if this is just the beginning of it. I also really enjoyed our time with Tanjiro just stuffing his mouth pretty much the entire episode. Tanjiro is literally constantly in battle, not being able to be a kid. I've joked with my friends, but it's kind of a serious thing where it's like, this boy has 10,000 things on his brain at all time. When he's in these battles, he's very, very high IQ, and you can see it in the way they animate his face in these battles that he does not have time to even like think about anything other than just going from thought to thought within the battle. That's why he has so many internal thoughts, is because there's always thoughts going on. He can't just breathe for a moment, even though of course he is breathing because he's using a breathing form. But it's really, really fun to see him just literally in bed, still healing, talking, eating, reading a book, being bit by his best friend, talking about Nezuko, getting his sword, crying over the hilt, which that whole scene was one of my favorite scenes from the episode. Just getting to see all that with Tanjiro, it's really nice to see him literally act like and be a kid, because he never gets to do that. It is very, very fun to see him just chilling out, just having a lot of fun, goofing off and being a kid. The Hashira meeting was also really well done. Very, very stretched out because it only takes place over a few chapters in the manga. It's definitely developing the story quite a lot. We're learning more about the mark while we're still not learning everything. And we're determining that we're, of course, going to do this Hashira training because we know that this battle is coming. We also are starting to see a little bit more development with Gyu because he's doing some weird things. Really looking forward to the future episodes and seeing what is going to happen to Gyu. And Nezuko is freaking adorable with no muzzle. Oh my gosh, I just love seeing her without a muzzle. Ufotable, please stop making her with a muzzle in all of your official art. Please, she is so adorable with it, but even more adorable without it. I need my Nezuko crumbs. Please, give it to me. But like I said, overall the episode is definitely an 8 out of 10. Most Demon Slayer episodes for me are a 9 or higher. This one is an 8 simply because it's one of the more chill ones. It had some really great moments, and then it's kind of just getting through the story a little bit. It's pretty slow. I still really enjoy that, but when it comes to like my 9.5s, my 10 out of 10s, we're talking season finales, we're talking about the big ones like Hinokami, that sort of thing. So this one definitely falls kind of in the middle of the pack. It's not my least favorite by any means, it's not my favorite by any means, but it was still a very good episode. So let's talk about the pacing of the manga, because I think that this is actually really interesting how they animated this episode. Now, for reference, Ufotable's normal tempo for animating per 25-minute episode is 3 chapters. Now this does change, it is give or take. Sometimes they go more 2.5 chapters, sometimes they go a little over 3 chapters, sometimes it's only 2 chapters, but the most normal cadence is 3 chapters for a 25-minute episode. That being said, this 49-minute episode had a little less than 3 chapters. So this episode adapted 128 faithfully with some added content. Like I said, the first scene was completely anime original. The stuff with Kanao and Shinobu right after that was also anime original. They adapted 129 faithfully. They adapted the first half of 130 faithfully, and then they skipped all the way to the last few pages of 131. So they're also kind of making some changes to the timeline. Now, I don't want people to hear that and think that means that they are skipping things. They are absolutely not skipping things. But the important thing to note is that the second half of 130, along with like the first beginning of that, of 131, is my favorite plot point of the show, and it's very, very quick in the manga. It's like less than a chapter, and I think we're getting an entire episode dedicated to that based off of my predictions, which I'll talk about here once I get into the spoiler stuff. So it's not that they're skipping over it, it's just that they're moving things around to make the pacing work with how they're gonna do the anime. Just to put it into perspective, let's talk a little bit about what each chapter looks like. So, as I already mentioned, that first scene with Sanemi and Obanai and then Shinobu and Kanao was anime original content because we finished Swordsmith Village with 127. It ended with their hug, by the way. So that's also interesting to note. The last 15 minutes of Swordsmith Village was also anime original content. So they're already doing a lot of this. This is not necessarily completely new. Chapter 128 starts immediately with Tanjiro in bed talking about the Swordsmith Village moving. So that's where technically the arc started, but of course in the episode we got Sanemi and Obanai, we got Shinobu and Kanao, and then I believe that's when it actually started with the manga material. This conversation was adapted pretty faithfully. It goes on to Zenitsu arriving and talking to Nezuko, and then it goes right into the Hashira meeting. So I think they also changed the order as well, if I'm remembering correctly. This is off the top of my head with the episode. I think we went from discussing Swordsmith Village moving and went right into the Hashira meeting. It was after that that we got Nezuko with Zenitsu, so they changed the order of that a little bit. We get our Hashira meeting, which is pretty much word for word the same thing, just really sitting on it, letting our characters talk everything out. And that was all chapter 128. 129 is when Muichiro talks about the mark, Gyu starts to leave, all kind of the same thing. We now go to Haganesuka arriving with the sword. This is all pretty much the same thing. He talks about the Metsu character, he talks about the original creator of the sword. We then move into Inosuke jumping through the window right after Genya says, please shut up. And also, this little moment here, which was our Taisho secret, I really enjoyed that they made this little doodle into a Taisho secret. That's really fun. We move into Zenitsu biting Tanjiro's head and talking to him about the Hashira training. Then we go to Tengen, we work through each Hashira, and that's where it completely changes. We jump all the way to Tamayo. So that scene with Ubuyashiki and Amane, that was anime original as well. That little scene between the two of them when he's like super sick and she's just talking him through a couple things. That was anime original because now we're jumping to Tamayo. And again, this is the last like 3 pages of 131. So that's kind of a breakdown of all of the changes. Definitely moved a lot of things around and skipped over some things to prepare it for the next episode or the next couple of episodes. So don't worry when I say they skip over things. I 100% know they're not skipping over it completely. They will adapt it. They're just moving things around to make the pacing work. All right, so now let's talk about my predictions for the next episode. This will be the time where I dip into some manga spoilers, so if you are an anime only and you do not want to be spoiled on things, now is the time to turn back, but thank you for watching. Okay. Now that I can freely talk about spoilers, the next episode is going to be completely dedicated to Giyu. That's what I am very, very much certain in. That is why they skipped over the second half of chapter 130, because when he gets his sword, Zenitsu and Tanjiro talked, they explained Hashira training. It goes right to Tanjiro talking to Giyu, or trying to get to Giyu, because he has to chase him around a bit. Now, I already know that there's going to be some anime original content with this where we're just going to see Giyu living his life while Tanjiro's just like chasing after him. I'm very much excited for that. But we are going to adapt Giyu's backstory in episode 2. This is not even a prediction. This is like, I know this for a fact because of the name of the episode. And this is going to be definitely stretched out because this is a really important moment. This is developing Giyu, who's been a very mysterious character so far. And this also touches on Tanjiro quite a bit because he says some things during this that really, really put into perspective what Tanjiro's head is thinking, because he legitimately says that he wishes that he would have died instead of Rengoku, and he can like relate to Giyu in that way. So really, really looking forward to seeing this. This is the second half of chapter 130 and the first few pages of 131. I think that's gonna be next episode. I don't think we're going to even get to chapter 132. I think episode 3 will probably start talking about Shinobu and Kanao, but as far as episode 2 goes, I think it's just gonna be the second half of 130 and the first like third of 131, and that's it. Which would make sense with how they're doing the episodes. That's how the pacing is definitely going to be, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing just how much time we get with Giyu, because Giyu is my second favorite character. When I read this part in the manga, this is when I started to fall in love with him as a character, and that continued on throughout the entirety of the rest of the series because he's with Tanjiro. He's very protective of Tanjiro the rest of the show, and I'm very, very much looking forward to that dynamic. It's like my favorite dynamic in the story, so I'm very, very excited for that. I'm probably gonna make an entire video dedicated to like my predictions on where this season is gonna end and how Infinity Castle is going to go. However, I will just quickly say, with it being 8 episodes long, and Hashira training technically ends when Muzan shows up at headquarters for Demon Slayer, before the conversation between Ubuyashiki and Muzan, my prediction is that we're going to actually technically dip a little into the Infinity Castle arc, and we're going to see that entire conversation. We're going to see all of the Slayers approach Muzan. We're going to see Muzan throw them into the Infinity Castle, and it's going to end somewhere around there. I'll go a little bit more in depth in a future episode here on my YouTube channel about that, but that is kind of what I'm expecting this season to end on. But that is pretty much it for today's video. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm gonna be making these videos after each episode. If you want to see a little bit more of a breakdown between manga and anime, I'm gonna be doing this this whole season. So hit that subscribe button and also click on the bell so you get notified whenever I make a new video. You can also follow me on all social media. I am at Looking Nerdy on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the things. If you want to see my random thoughts on Twitter, if you want to see my cosplay stuff on Instagram, or you want to see my short form videos on TikTok, I'm pretty active on everything. The link is in the description, but it's Looking Nerdy on everything, so I make it easy for you. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and with that, I'll see you all next week.